Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Judith, how are you?
I'm great, Nicola. How are you? Tell me about your week.
Oh, I've had a lovely week, Judith. Contrary to my fears and worries about the whole thing, Irene turned up on Thursday. I actually went and had a haircut first, so I finished our podcast. I did my weekly call-in show for my Clicks and Leads clients, and then I went off and had a haircut, and it was a really nice haircut. Young lady, 21 years old, covered in tattoos from head to foot. And she did a really nice version of my bob. She did sort of the usual thing, did the colour first, and she did the bob. She just want to take it. I said, take it up quite a lot. It's quite long, isn't it? And then she said to me at the very end, she dried it off, and she said, should we just cut some layers in? It's looking a bit heavy, isn't it, around here? And I said, oh, all right then.
I love it when if they're talented and they ask if they can improve it. I love that.
Yeah. And I said, if there's anything you do with that fringe, because I said, I do cut it straight across. I get it cut straight across, but literally within days, it's decided to grow at all different things. She said, how do you like it? I said, well, I like it sort of just above the eyebrows, but a bit choppy, so that it looks a bit not straggly, but it's chopped into. I said, but nobody ever seems to get that right. And I always end up trying to do it at home. Yeah. She said, oh, let's have a go then. She got these scissors out, and I'm not joking. She pulled out the layers, how they do, around the back, and she was cutting into them with these sort of weird scissors.
Yeah, I know the ones you mean.
Yeah. And thinning scissors, I think.
Yes. And they make a crunching noise, a bit like those ones we used to use when we were making our own clothes. Do you remember pinking shears?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they were lovely.
Yeah.
and so she went round. I was quite alarmed at the amount that was falling off under her fingertips. But then she came around and did the choppy fringe, and I'm not joking. I really liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best haircut I've had for a very long time. And no offence to any of my other hairdressers, because I'm usually quite strict about what I let them do. But this was good. She was 21. I thought, she's been hairdressing since she was 15. So
yes.
In fact, she left school early to go and work.
See, that's somebody who cares about their job and their customers enough to ask if they can bring their creative flair to their work. I love that.
Absolutely. And so then I toddled off to Brighton feeling quite glamorous. And Irene and I managed to coordinate our arrangements. I got off the bus and she was waiting there. And then we went to a couple of places because I'd boned up on good bars. I wanted somewhere, lively, funky, not too loud, but not a cocktail bar. I wanted to show Irene some lively parts of Brighton. So Phoebe had given me a list of places to go. So we went to a couple of them. The first one was lovely but too loud. The second one was just perfect. And then we were meeting Phoebe for dinner, and we were going to the Ivy, which is my early Christmas present, because I really we wanted to go there a lot. And Phoebe, of course, was tragically late because she got to the station. There was the train had been cancelled. Then she got to the bus stop. There was no bus it was supposed to be every 10 minutes, but there wasn't one for 45 minutes. And then she walked to the station, got the train, and then she got to Brighton station, and again, there were no taxis, whereas there's normally about 50 taxis queuing up round Brighton. The London train must have just got in or something. Anyway, so she ended up being like an hour late, but the Ivy were absolutely lovely about it. And Irene and I, in the meantime, were working our way through the cocktail list. Yeah. And the place, I've got to tell you, if you're anywhere near Brighton, it is the most beautiful restaurant I've been in for a long time. They've managed to make it look really, really old and Art Nouveau, and the staff, there's staff everywhere, and they're all very young and very efficient and very good. And they were very good about, they couldn't have done it on a Friday or a Saturday night, I don't think, but because it was quite a little bit quieter on a Thursday, they were able to push us back a bit. And Phoebe finally arrived looking absolutely glorious. And we had the most delicious dinner, and it was just so lovely. The whole place, you go down to the toilets are beautiful. They smell lovely. It's just every detail has been taken care of. Do you remember I mean, I love the Ivy in London, and I know it's had a massive refurb, hasn't it, Judith?
It has, yes, yes. We did.
Have you been since?
No, I haven't, because I haven't really been in London since.
Ah, well, I know you poo-poo Brighton rather badly, but it's that.
I realised that when you said if you were ever near Brighton, you were talking to the listener, not to me.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't actually. I was thinking you might want to.
No.
So I know how fond you are of the Ivy in London.
I am fond of the Ivy, but it's everywhere now. So they've done a.
Well, good for them. They've done it really well.
They have. They
felt really special. It really did. And then I woke up the next morning, went home on the bus, went home. We both went home on the bus, which was hilarious. The buses are really good here, so I use them quite a lot. And then the next day, I woke up. I had a little poodle about. I can't remember what I did on Friday morning. Went to meet Irene for lunch. She was staying at the Pelly Rocco, by the way. The Pelly Rocco Hotel is the quirky rock and roll hotel in Brighton, which actually inspired the Acacia.
Good for Irene to seek out something funky.
Well, she was going to stay at the Malmaison at the marina, but I said to her, "You're miles out of town there. You won't be able to walk about, if you want to kill some time."
Oh, she likes the seaside, though. She likes the sea, doesn't she?
She does, but the marina's bloody miles away. It really is. So anyway, I talked her into the other option was the Pelly Rock, and I said, "Oh, that's the place that inspired the Acacia." So she said, "Oh, well, I'd love to go there because that's a bit of history, isn't it?" And I said, "Yeah, it is, because it was the first boutique hotel on the South Coast, really." And then we went to Brown's, which is now Brown's. I was telling her about my first ever date there with Ian Gurr, who used to have a moustache like Magnum PI, and he drove some sort of Capri. And he took me to see the Jacksons with little Michael Jackson, and then for a spaghetti vongole at Brown's. And it was my first experience of a grown-up restaurant. And I remember I must have been only just 18 because I was allowed to drink wine. And I was actually counting up how many years ago it was. And as I'm 58, with the help of many fingers, I came to the conclusion it was 40 years ago. Oh, my God, that was terrible.
I know. Shocking.
Brown looks just the same. Another chain that's done, a small chain that's been done really, really well.
Yeah.
And then we went off. What did we do in the afternoon? We went for a walk around the lanes, which were buzzing, all strange little specialty shops selling all sorts of things you've never even heard of before. And then she popped back to the hotel, and just for a couple of hours. And I could have gone back to Shoreham, but I know what I'm like. I wouldn't have wanted to come out again. So I just found the nearest pub and had a coffee and a big glass of sparkling water and read my Kindle for an hour or two. And then we met up again at the Comedia, spelt with a K, and we watched the Maydays do, and a guest slot as well. But what they Maydays did was they gave us all a newspaper as we went in, and they said find the best headlines out of that, a couple of good headlines and articles, and just hand them in to us, and we'll pull them out of a hat and improvise around them. Oh my God, I was crying with laughter. They pulled one out of mine. I found one that said, elderly gentleman arrested after attacking passerby with toothpick. Mm-hmm. And they made it so funny, and they turned it into a wee elderly gentleman in a suit with a toothpick, and they did it in a Scots accent. It was just so funny. Anyway, so crying with laughter at that one thoroughly, and they do workshops. So I'm thinking, oh, that might be quite fun to go and do a improv comedy workshop.
Oh,
not that I'm known for being funny.
Just listed quite a lot of things: Brighton, the bus, and comedy improv. I'm thinking, rather her than me on all of those.
Yeah. So we came out of there and we'd had, our lunch was so large we didn't want to eat again. We didn't really want to drink anything else. And although it was Friday night in Brighton, we didn't really want to go anywhere and rave. So she poodled off back to her, because she'd woken up at 5 a.m. as well. So she went back to her hotel and then thusly to Sunderland on the train. Mm-hmm. And we had a very funny conversation.
Did she go on the train? Because she told me she'd serviced her car.
Yeah, but she decided not to in the end.
Oh, okay.
And that was really good, because all the hours on the train, because it's actually, I've done the journey, it's quite a long journey, she'd actually come up with a really big brainwave for her business while sitting idle on the train, just thinking. And we determined, that she must do more of that. And she said, well, that wouldn't have happened if I'd been driving. I said, well, I don't know, it might have done. Because
no, it does to me, yeah. It's the same trance for me.
But we also had this very funny conversation after about half an hour. And I said, so Irene, why are you here?
Yes.
She said, I knew you were going to ask that. And she said, I've just come to see you. And I was like, oh, really? No pressure then. And she said, "Oh, don't be ridiculous." She said, "You know, I knew you'd be like that. I knew you'd feel like that." But she said, "We had such a lovely time when you came up to see me, which was a real aberration for me, if you remember. I was
Yes, I do. Yeah.
My little phase after Steve died of trying to work out what I enjoyed doing, and Irene was the brunt of my. I'm going to go and stay with someone. Actually, Jane Lewis got that as well, but that was different. She was a client. Anyway, so we had this very funny conversation. Once I established that all I had to do was be me for a couple of days, it was fine. We got on really well and had a lovely time. So that's pretty much my week, apart from what I'm going to tell you in the rest of the show.
Okay, so I've had a very nice week as well. I've moved house twice this week. The first one was on Sunday, where, do you remember I got the permission from the people as soon as their plane had landed, I could leave because I knew.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So I spent one night in a luxury Airbnb. The luxury Airbnb itself was lovely. I hope Bernadette's listening to this because I learned something very useful from this. The accommodation itself was lovely, except there was no manual to tell me how everything worked. Oh. And Airbnb, as you remember from Bernadette's piece that she did for us, have such people as superhosts. Oh. You know, if you meet certain criteria, you become a superhost. And Annie was a superhost, but she didn't manage my expectations at all well, either before or during the stay. The accommodation was lovely, but there were many things that were wrong that could be fixed easily and effortlessly, and I was paying a luxury price for it. And I was a little bit grumpy that, for instance, there wasn't a bedside lamp, so I had to get out of bed to turn.
Basic.
Well, get out of bed to turn the lights off. I couldn't work out the light switches. Then I'm standing eventually work out that it's not a light switch; it's a funny tiny little button, and I press it. I'm standing in a strange room in pitch darkness.
Yeah, not good.
Well, not good. I'm staying somewhere now which is a lot less fancy, and it's not an Airbnb. It's a holiday cottage thing for, I think, 5 nights, Monday to Friday. But it's much nicer because of the attentiveness of the host. As you know, since we've been sitting here, he's brought me a cup of coffee. And much as Bernadette told us, although normally I wouldn't want that attention, he is a fascinating human being. So he's very posh, and he'd left me a welcome. He'd sent me 2 cheery texts in advance. Oh. And he left me a note that was handwritten with a fountain pen on thick, creamy note paper with his double-barreled surname on it. And one look at his double-barreled surname, I realised who he was, because the words of his double-barreled surname had been rearranged in the 1970s to the name of a punk band, which, as it turns out, is led by his brother. No. And this man is a platinum smith. And despite my rugged attempts at saying, no, I can manage, leave me alone, he insisted on helping me in with my bags from the car, which was slightly embarrassing because I am a bit of a bag lady. Yes. I have this system where I had, I think, 8 bags to bring in that were all different colours because I know what's filed in each one of them, you know, from clean laundry to dirty laundry to the coffee machine to the computer.
You a matching suite of luggage.
Exactly right. Yeah, I mean, the only decent suitcase I've left in the car because that's full of stuff I want for the thing. Anyway, so Airbnb invited me to give feedback, which I had no plans to do because I was only staying there for one night. But I found I quite enjoyed listing her shortcomings, and she's left me quite a nice review that says I was polite and respectful or something like that. And here the washing machine door doesn't fit, but he's already fixed it for me this morning. And I was a little, it's just like, it's a weird thing. I'm not a person who likes to be over-serviced, and this man is ever so slightly over-servicing me, but I find I'm enjoying it. Yes, you're drawing breath as if you were going to say something.
Well, I was just thinking back to my Acacia days and how before I opened the Acacia, I stayed in lots of hotels and I knew the things that annoyed me. And funnily enough, I came across this no bedside table thing at the Airbnb in...
No bedside lamp or no bedside table?
No bedside lamp, sorry.
Oh, well, there was a beautiful bedside table, but nothing on it of any use.
And the thing is, like you say, when I like to read in bed, and the last thing you want to do when you're reading in bed is to have to get up in the freezing cold and get out and find the lamp and turn it off and get back. You're wide awake.
Quite. I tell you what was the most annoying thing, actually. It wasn't anything physical when I was in the accommodation. It was that in advance, it said on the instructions there was a lockbox, which means you need a code to get in.
Yeah.
And on Friday night, I realised I hadn't got it. So I sent her a message via Airbnb, which she ignored. And one of the super host things that you get rewarded for is being responsive to such communications from your, I don't know what you call it, residents. And So at 4:00 on Saturday afternoon, when I'm staying there on Sunday night and I haven't heard from her yet, I called her and she didn't answer. And then she rang me back and I said, it's Judith, I'm coming to stay tomorrow night. I'm concerned that I don't yet have, we're closing on 24 hours and I don't yet have access. And she said, I normally tell people 24 hours in advance. Well, nowhere had my expectations been managed about that, because it didn't say it on her listing at all. It didn't say, it didn't inform. Yeah. So that in that case, you have to be like a mind reader of her system. And what that indicated to me, and I used the word to Marion, disdain, what that indicated to me was that her business is run for her convenience, not for mine. And this one here is run for my convenience. The landlord slightly overserving me. He's looking after me, which is actually what business is all about. And I've got more examples of that further on. But I'm going to tell you, this lovely little village has got a beautician's in it. So tomorrow I'm going for a manicure and a pedicure. It's easy to get in their diary. It's easy to park outside them. It's another village filled with happy, smiley people with a can-do attitude and an abundance of tall, handsome, gallant men offering to help me all the time. It's bliss. Marion came on Tuesday and we went to a gastropub.
Marion come to visit?
No, well, Marion and I do visiting, but because we insist on living in foreign countries, that's quite hard. So the last time we got together was 2 Christmases ago in Canary Wharf, where we had a slow, comfortable screw against the wall or whatever cocktails are called. And this time she came and we went to a gastropub. And as soon as we walked in, they said, do you have a booking? And I said, no, but it's only 11:45. We thought we'd come and hang out here for a bit and then have some lunch. And these 2 handsome men sitting on 2 leather sofas either side of a wood fire said, oh, come and sit here, ladies. It was like, nothing is too much trouble in this village for happy. And do you know what? There's not a padded jacket in sight. There are people of all ages, as there are in Tunbridge Wells, interestingly. Not many black people, shame, but there are grannies, mums and children, which is what I was asking for last week. And we Marion and I sat next to a group of people, quite a large group of people, having an early Christmas lunch, from the office, with people in Christmas jumpers and things. And they had that diversity. The whole pub had that diversity that I'm after.
Yeah. Are we talking about the Royal Tunbridge Wells or there's 2, isn't there?
No, I don't think so. I think Tunbridge Wells is royal if you want to go there, but I don't know. I don't know to what extent it is royal, but it's got very beautiful architecture, but the traffic is appalling. You don't really want to go into Tunbridge Wells unless you've got to. I'm in this village, which is 2 miles south, but the interesting thing about it, and the landlord explained this to me this morning, is in the 2 miles between here and Tunbridge Wells, you go across the border from East Sussex into Kent. So Tunbridge Wells is in Kent. Apparently the dividing line of Kent between East Sussex goes right down the Pantiles, which is the thing in the middle of Tunbridge Wells. And so I'm in East Sussex, and Tunbridge Wells, like 2 miles up the road, is in Kent. And when Marion came, she came to the railway station for this village, which ironically was further away than the railway station in Tunbridge Wells, which was quite funny. But we had a lovely day in a gastropub, and we hadn't seen each other for 2 years. I brought her back to the studio, and she helped me get my head straight about the topics of our next 2 podcasts, which are reviewing 2019 and planning 2020, which is the sort of thing that 2 coaches do when they get together.
Yes. I'm still completely distracted by the fact that you allow Marion to come and visit.
Yes, but Marion's my special friend.
Oh, hurtful, very hurtful.
Sorry, but you're a colleague. Funnily enough, when she went to the bar with my credit card on the way to the loo, she said to the woman behind the counter, and I heard her, she said, could you take that over to my colleague? I said to the woman, the waitress, when she put it over, did she call me her colleague? She said, I said, she's my busy mate. What was she talking about? And then the waitress said, do you work together? I went, no, we don't. I went, oh, hang on. We did about a decade ago. I think Marion was just being funny, but there we go. So tell me what has fueled your fire.
In an attempt to distract me. Right. What's fueled my fire is Stupor Life is back on track. We've had a couple of weeks of delay. It's hilarious. My mentor stroke now business partner in Stupor Life said to me the other day, I don't know what you're getting so het up about. It's still under a month since you had the initial idea.
No, it's not.
Well, it was when
it's under 2 months, but it's not under a month.
Yeah, when I talked to him, it was. But in the last 3 weeks, it's sort of slowed to a hideous crawl because of a tiny little software glitch, which took some work from myself and my chap.
Your Zoltan equivalent.
Yes.
Yes.
VICAS. VICAS.
Yes.
So Vikas and I, and the thing is, he is very brilliant, fluent English, and he's a very bright guy. And
could I just interrupt you here for a second? I know what you're going to tell me because you told us this before. It was about ticking the box and being good girls about what people had.
No, something different completely.
Another software glitch.
We sorted that issue out.
Well, you've had multiple software glitches.
Yeah, we have, yeah. But they're only tiny, and I knew they'd be fixed. This one was when you went to set up a new listing, and you put your, you have three choices, Stupa, Cardamelia, Nagios Nikolaos, in the area of the Peloponnese, which is the big area of Greece that's got the three fingers on the bottom.
Yeah.
I wanted to keep it really, really local, so I only put three cities in. Their villages, but they're cities for the software purposes. And but then when you go in to move your flag to put your exact location, unless you're in the exact centre of Stupa, if you even remotely stray out into the environs surrounding, it was throwing up an error message saying you must choose one of these three locations.
Oh, I think that's quite a big glitch compared to the previous one.
Well, yes, it was, and we couldn't quite work out how to fix it because he said it should work because the Peloponnese is that great big area.
Yeah.
And anywhere outside any of those things, it's still within the region. So it took us a long time to figure it out, backwards and forwards. And I said, look, the thing is, this is a major problem. People are going to want to move their flag on the Google map to exactly where their house is. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. And there's going to be enough people outside these villages that live just outside. And it wasn't even very far from the centre of the village that it wasn't allowing you to do it. So it took us, that took a good 2 weeks. And they kept saying we might have to custom code it. And I said, no, you don't have to custom code it because right at the very beginning, when I first added someone, it let me do it. So I know that something has changed about the way we've set it up. That means that we don't. And I said, I don't want custom coding. I never want custom coding. I want it to work with the geo. You're not telling me that a big.
You want it to work how it's supposed to work.
Yeah. And
yes, fair enough.
A big, fat, successful plugin like GeoDirectory has not come across this issue before. So go and find out how to fix it. And they did, to their credit. So what it involved was putting more villages in, so there were more areas. And it involved changing the region from the Peloponnese to Messenia. Oh. Because confusingly, just outside the area we're talking about is a town called Messini. And the actual geographic region is Messenia within the Peloponnese. So by bringing the area down,
it worked better.
Anyway, it's very dull and boring, but it's working now. So the point is, I've now had all my spreadsheet back of all the different amalgamations of listings from Airbnb and Booking.com and Google Maps and any other directories I could find. So we are going to be the biggest independent listing of for rent by owner accommodation in the Stupa area. And but now it involves putting them into the database. So I spent yesterday, I think I did 25 in the day yesterday because I kept feeling myself drawn to go and make a cup of coffee.
Yes. Yes, data entry not being your main thing. No.
It does appeal to my OCD because once I get into the flow of it, it's quite pleasing to go down the spreadsheet and make sure that they're all in properly. But next time I will be paying someone else to do this. But I felt with the first one, I wanted to do it myself just so I knew what the issues might be.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. So so 25 listings down, only another 300 to go. And the other thing...
And that's not automated or can't be automated, them inputting their own listing.
Well, the idea... No, we came to the conclusion some people have come along and input their own listing, and I have been advertising only to the business owners in the area about the site. So I want to swap that advertising over now to people who are going to use the site to book accommodation. But I can't do that till there's a decent number of listings.
Yes, I understand. Yeah.
So I've got to do a bare minimum of listings and then carry on while advertising, but we figure the thing is, that once the season comes to an end, they've all worked their asses off for 6 months solid.
Yeah,
and they're all absolutely knackered.
So,
thinking about marketing initiatives for next year, even with the Thomas Cook debacle, is probably not high on the list for most people there.
No, certainly not this side of Christmas.
No. So the plan we came up with was to actually set them, because we knew that the site needed to have a good number of people in to make it useful to users, people like you and I who want to book accommodation. So we figured that we would have to add most people and give them 3 months free, and then we would have to notify them to let them know that they had that listing and that they should come and claim it and upgrade it as much as they're able to on the free listing, which is quite substantial. They can add lots of pictures, they can choose their location, they can add to their description, etc., etc. So I'm going through and putting in the bare minimum of a picture, a short description, a phone number or email address, depending on what I've got, and then I'm contacting them to let them know they've got 3 months free from now. And that'll be nice, because that'll take them over the time when most people are actually looking at and booking their holidays, which is Christmas and New Year. So it's been quite busy, that one. The other thing I wanted to just mention to everyone here, Judith, you'll be bored stiff hearing this, so I won't go on too long. I found a fantastic plug-in. One of my clients said to me, how do I know what action people are taking on my site? I said, well, there's 2 things you could do. You can get a free bit of script called Mouseflow. You can go to mouseflow.com, and if you put the bit of script in, then just like you put in a Google Analytics or Facebook Pixel, it'll record for free 100 people visiting your site, and you can watch them moving around your site. The other thing you can do is, I found this plugin called Gravitate event tracking plugin. It's free, and you plug it in, and if you've got Google Analytics on your site, it'll start producing reports in your Google Analytics that tell you what actions people are taking on your site. And you can even go into the Gravitate plugin and specify what actions you want to track. So if you specifically want to track how many people click on that button or how many people fill in that form, you can specify that, and it will produce those reports in analytics, which is great.
And are you using that on Stupid Life?
I'm about to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I literally only found it this week because I was searching for a solution that was easy to install for this problem.
Yeah.
Rather than the way they suggest using Google Tag Manager, which I've never managed to figure out yet. So I've been quite food-fueled this week, Judith, as you may hear. On the
Excellent.
What about you?
An artist, a young woman called Georgia, who used to live in Brighton but came to her senses. I've only had one session with her, and I mentioned her but not by name recently when you were saying that you had challenged that woman to make 31-minute videos. Do you remember that week?
Yeah.
And for all I know, this one session that I've done with Georgia may be the only one we ever do. But she was the woman that I challenged to make. I thought, my memory was it was £2,000 before Christmas, but looking at my notes, it looks as though it might have been 1,800. And the way that we decided to do it was that the new place that she's moved to is somewhere that I coincidentally knew because I've stayed near it several times this year. And it's a very nice, old-fashioned, it's the sort of place you'd go if you were looking to go do some sort of artisan shopping in a funny sort of a way. And she got a lovely art studio down the bottom of the garden, and her paintings had been accepted at galleries, but galleries are a mixed blessing because they often dictate the price, and they take 50%. So that's great if you're charging enough, but they often take them on a sale or return basis as well. So I don't think, I may be exaggerating here, but I don't think she'd sold anything in her own right. And she told me that she'd got this nice studio down the bottom of the garden. And I said, and what's the stock worth that you've got down there? And I think this is where she said to me, 1,800 quid. And I said, look, here's the challenge. Get rid of it all before Christmas. And we talked about how we should do that. And in this village where she's moved to, they have Christmas fairs. And she asked me, should she put out an A-board? And I said, no, I think you should do something much more proactive than that. I think you should mingle around the crowds with, lovely postcards that you give out and invite them to an open studio. Well, I didn't hear any more from her, but on Saturday on Facebook, I saw that she was just doing exactly that. So I gave her a nice sort of icon of approval, and on Monday morning I got this message from her that says, "Hi Judith, I hope you're well. I just couldn't wait to tell you that the open studio was fantastic. Thank you for pushing me. I had the first of 2 dates yesterday. People were happy to spend more than I thought. I sold £1,200 worth. I honestly can't believe it. I'm buzzing this morning. I was in shop last night and I said, I saw you were doing it, you brave girl. I'm chuffed for you and I hope the second one goes well too. And she goes, God, it gives you an almighty whack of confidence. So she basically made her first sales because I'd said, get rid of everything you've already painted down the garden shed, turn it into cash. And she'd done it. Brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah. When people take action, despite their own fears and doubts, it's such a wonderful thing when it works.
I think she's quite a plucky bird because she... Really, I mean, she'd been to university and she'd done part-time and full-time jobs since then. She'd never wanted to get stuck. She'd had other entrepreneurial ventures, but is essentially an artist. She had gone to galleries and got her work accepted there, but I think not had a sale and certainly not asked her peer group or anybody, even her new neighbours or anything about, would you like to buy my art? And the answer is, as soon as she asked them, the answer was yes, 1,200 quid's worth on the first of 2 days.
That's brilliant.
It is brilliant.
I mean, she needs to model Alice, doesn't she?
Well, don't forget that all of these artists come to me through Alice, where they're already working. Yeah. So on Monday, when I'm driving in the car, I pulled over and phoned Alice and said, oh my God, I've got some marvellous news for her, and read her this message. Because, of course, Alice is, we're in the chain of this, if that makes together. Yeah. So, and Alice enjoyed it too. But immediately broke down into tears because she was having another incident. But I think good news can sometimes cause you to do that because it's just emotion. I was listening yesterday in the car to Classic FM. It was that time of day when it's just people talking, boring people on Radio 2. And, the advert for Médecins Sans Frontières about leaving them money in your will just made me cry.
Yeah.
For no reason at all. Good news and good people doing good things can often make me cry, funnily enough. And in fact, my old boss, Jerry, used to say at parties, come over and watch this. And he would say nice things to me until I cried. Because I cry, I'm moved by nice things.
Yes. I do.
People being nice is what,
Yeah, much more often than being unhappy or sad or angry. I cry, like you. I think those are differences. I think they're tears of sentimentality rather than...
Yeah, they are. They are. Yeah.
A bit like the Christmas ads.
Yes, I don't watch those.
No.
On a point of principle. Now, let's move on because we're running out of time. Focus of the week. One of my two favourite horoscopologists is Lorna Bevan, and I subscribe to a monthly report by her. It's quite hard to read it. Sometimes I don't manage to read it, and sometimes I file it and read it more than once or twice. But expressions, I know Irene subscribes to the same thing. Expressions jump out at me sometimes, and in a recent report from her, I saw her say that there's a big switch happening from the previous 2 decades. I got this wrong when I was explaining it to you before. The previous 2 decades of 1999 to 2019 is regarded by her and people in her line of work as the cycle of seeking. And I thought she said the next 2 decades are the cycle of creating, but what she said was the next 1 decade, 2020 to 2030, will be the cycle of creating. So what you and I decided that we would talk about and sort of navel gaze a bit is to see whether at all this bears scrutiny. So do you feel, do I feel, does the listener feel that for the last 2 decades they've been seeking? They could describe themselves as a seeker. I think I can, in fact. And what it means for you, me and the listener that the next decade might be all about creating. Would you like to go first?
Well, 1999 coincides beautifully with the year that I think 1998 was when I started training as a coach and went to Vegas and met Chris Barrow and Guy Levine, who had his 40th birthday this week, by the way.
I know. Sorry.
I met him at 18.
I met him at 23 or 21 or something like that.
Yeah, ridiculous. Anyway, and then, yes, I have been seeking for the last 20 years.
Yeah, so have I. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, many incarnations. And really, it was so strange because I was when I was thinking about this during the week, and when you said about it this morning, I was thinking about, I think I'm still seeking. I don't feel like I've stopped seeking. But then I actually realised just this morning that I have stopped seeking and I have settled on what I want to do for the next 10 years, which is and it was so funny because I have these periods of mental restlessness. And what I'm finding is that they also coincide with periods of mental forgetfulness. So I had this thing I told you about my shoes, didn't I, the other week? Where I I had other shoes apart from Birkenstocks, and I was having this conversation with my one of my mentors, stroke business partner, and I said, I next time we talk in the new year, I want to talk about what I'm going to do ongoing. And he said, well, what about Stupa Life? I thought we were doing that. And he said, and I said, oh my God, I'd totally forgotten that was actually a thing that was going to be the thing that I concentrate on for the next 10 years, because it's not just Stupa Life, it's other resorts as well, and it can be expanded. And but the point is, it's a business that doesn't involve me necessarily being a figurehead or delivering. That's the point. And that's what I was still feeling like I was seeking that, because I have been seeking that since 1999, because if you remember, I had Artist Manager, which was a similar kind of business. So I've come full circle in 20 years back to a business that is ongoing and won't involve me necessarily on the day-to-day basis.
So what that tells me about you is a good thing, which is you were right the first time with the business model idea that you had.
Yes. And if only I'd stuck with it, eh?
Well, I wasn't really saying that, funnily enough. I mean, I know I'm often critical, but I wasn't really saying that. I was saying that often our instincts are right first time, and what we've got to have is the confidence to go with that.
Yeah, but you only have the confidence to go with that if it works first time, don't you?
Well, and also, if after you've been... Yeah, because often a creator, which is why this next decade is going to be so interesting for us, because we've cut our teeth in the previous two, often a creator is an early adopter. So maybe the world wasn't ready for Artist Manager at that point.
Well, I don't think the world's been... I mean, that's something that someone said to me this last week, actually. You've been banging on about this stuff for the last 20 years. It's only now we're catching up with how important it is. And I just thought, oh, that's so true.
And so annoying.
Yeah, so annoying.
It's like when new clients come that say, I first read about you in 2008. Well, where have you been?
Yeah, so if you're moving from seeking to creating, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to create new businesses or new stuff or try new things. It just means that you have to create more substantial body of work to support what you found in the previous 2 decades. Is what I'm thinking.
I think it just means it's going to be easy for us because creating is already our zone of genius because we've got 20 years of having a go.
Yeah, and the other thing that occurred to me when I was looking at is I say to the children sometimes, because their dad obviously is very keen for them to go and get an office job because that's the only kind of job he perceives to be a proper job, because that's what he does. And I said to them, you guys have got to realise, and it's something I wish I'd realised 40 years ago, that creators are in a tiny minority. People who are able to sit in meetings and have ideas, and people who are able to walk away and keep thinking about things and have more ideas or different ideas or better ideas. The whole creative thing, we're so unusual.
Well, I think it's skewed because in our world, we're not unusual.
No,
all my clients are the same.
Yes.
And, it's coming to terms with that and the curse of too many ideas when they can't focus on one, which is really what my work is all about, funnily enough. But I do think the next decade is going to be easy for us. May I talk about, have you finished? Can I talk about the cycle of seeking? I think my cycle of seeking actually began in 1992, earlier than she says, because it was when I'd always been woo-woo from a child, and but I seriously got into personal development when I was 37, when I also started therapy, but I then went on Louise Hay's workshop, You Can Heal Your Life, and I got serious. So my seeking has all been around personal development, discovering who I am, discovering that it's all right to be who I am, giving myself permission to be all right, a square peg. My seeking has all been a spiritual quest, really. And I also think that there's something about being an entrepreneur, which means to a certain extent we'll always be seeking because we're always looking for a better way to do things.
Yeah.
It kind of goes with the territory a bit.
It does. It's like, talking about Airbnb things,
I know. Well, you wait. I've got another example of that. But when you say to me every week, project updates, and laugh when I say, no, I haven't got any, that's a deliberate choice of stopping seeking for a new way to make a living because I've already got a great way of making a living. So that, not distracting myself, not allowing any further distractions is me policing me.
Yeah. And I think and I felt this overwhelming sense of relief when I thought, you've got to, I've got.
I agree with you. All we've got to do is make a good one work. Yeah.
Well, I've just got to carry on doing the ones that do work.
Yes. Or the one that does work.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you could streamline it to the one that does work.
Well, yes. Eventually.
And I think the one is more likely to work if one hasn't got multiple ones. We know that.
We keep saying that to clients, don't we?
Yes.
But what I've been frustrated by is that how I wanted to earn my living was not how it was most easy to earn my living. I've always found it easier to make money providing services, but that is not ultimately how I wanted to do it. So there's this push-pull thing going.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah.
Well, especially the last 10 years.
Yes.
But coming back to something, I want to ask you something about, I've always been woo-woo as a child. How did that manifest itself?
So I'll give you an example of what happened since I've been here this week. The front part of the studio is quite noisy because the road to your house goes past the window. But when I go into the bedroom, they've sort of built on a studio. So two-thirds of it are sticking out the front of the house and a third of it is shielded by the house. And so when you go in there, there's no noise from the road, which is bliss because you're trying to sleep. But what there is at night is the lights of the cars going by without the noise of the cars going by. And the first time I opened my eyes and saw it, I thought I'd seen a ghost. But it didn't worry me. So how did that manifest itself? ESP, mind reading, knowing what people are going to say, knowing who people are, being aware of energy, all the stuff we know now, which I was just a natural at as a child and a teenager. Mind reading. I can't describe it really. Just comfort with. I just thought how I felt about everything was normal.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
No. It took me years to find that out.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'll never forget once when I first got a job as my doctor's receptionist, and I obviously the first thing you do is read your own files, even though you're not supposed to. And I remember seeing something where they were talking about sending me to a child psychiatrist because they said she's an imaginative little girl. She hears bells ringing and owls hooting on a regular basis. And I thought,
well, there you go. Until they, the establishment, shut it down. You see, women who have those things were burned as witches in previous decades, not decades, in centuries, previous centuries. So, it's in the nature of a woman to be a little bit spooky.
So we both agree that this seeking versus creating thing is real for us. Do you think it's going to be real for the majority of people?
Well, I think that people who are not so tuned in to, say, astrology. I mean, astrology. Well, we're going to have Sally on soon talking about, yes, exactly. We're going to record Sally on the 12th of December and put her out in early January. She's going to talk to us about astrology for Brian Cox fans. And I got you to watch a little clip of a film that's called, I can't remember what it was called now, but you were quite intrigued, weren't you?
Yeah.
I think, what was I saying? Do I think it'll be normal? I think people hearing this might go, oh, no wonder I've been on a quest for 2 decades. 2 decades in the life of our listener is most of their adult life.
Yeah, not for us.
No, but for them, it might feel they might not need the explanation, or that it might just cause things to drop into place. And I think if it's the next decade is going to be creating, it won't start on the 1st of January 2020, it'll be the context of the next decade, if that makes sense. So I don't think I'll stop seeking. But what I think, if the next decade is the decade of effectively the creator, that's going to be wonderful for us. And most of our listeners, actually, because if during the seeking, their seeking has been creative, which mostly it has, we won't be ahead of our time anymore. We'll be in our time.
Yeah. I'm very interested in, as you know, computers and blockchain technology and artificial intelligence, and all of that is great. But everybody who works in that arena values creativity above anything, because that's the one thing that they think computers are never going to be able to replicate. And it's really interesting working with software developers, particularly because they are incredible people, but they cannot solve problems creatively, and they cannot, they're brilliant at but when it comes to it, thinking outside the box, making intuitive leaps, finding ways around.
Well, you see, I don't think everybody should be able to do everything. We can't do what they can do. So aren't we lucky that we can do what we can do?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's. I think if I've got one message for the kids who are, so creative, it's unreal. It would be to value that creativity.
I agree.
Realise how valuable.
I agree. In fact, it was the wealth dynamics test that caused me to realise how I'd been a creator, by inventing businesses that weren't there before, and how to value that above all else, my ability to create something that wasn't there before, and to think creatively and to work with these creative people that I now love working with.
Yes, you do. Yes, you've really made that your niche now, haven't you?
I decided it. And I think that was a spooky decision. I don't think I decided it with my head. I just felt moved to go. Once I realised I was so creative, and, you don't think of accountants as being creative, do you? Let's face it. Well, once I realised my creativity was entrepreneurship, I thought, well, if I'm as creative as all that, I need to be mixing with more creative people. That's, I think, looking back, I think that's what caused it. But I totally agree with you. I would wear creativity as a badge of honour. Yeah.
Yes, and realise your value and know how sought after you are, even in the corporate environment. It's so incredibly valued by MDs and chairmen, but also there's a fantastic book just popped into my head, which is Orbiting the Giant Hairball.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And, remember that beautiful, beautiful book, and really fantastic concept about how to be a creative person in a corporate environment and survive that experience.
And you know what? Unless you talk yourself up like we're doing now, I don't think it's easy to be a creative person.
No,
necessarily.
No, because you find a lot of things difficult that other people find.
Yes.
And that makes you a difficult person.
Yeah.
Unless you embrace your creativity and nurture it, and that book talks about exactly how to do that. It talks about how to enhance creativity in your organisation, but it also talks about how to help creators fit within the corporate environment because they're so needed.
Or not be so uncomfortable.
Yes, exactly. Good stuff. Oh, that was a nice one, wasn't it?
Well, give me your word of the week.
My word of the week is making space / letting go.
No, that's about 6 words. What's the matter with you?
4 words.
Pick a word. Space.
Yes.
Right. Tell me about it quickly because we're running out of time, darling.
Well, that's it. I mean, basically when I realised I had everything I needed in my life now, I've got one lovely done-for-you client who replaced the last one, who's moved on. I've got 3 lovely packages, so anyone who comes to me for mentoring, I can offer them something to suit their budget. I've got 1 podcast, which is now my sole way of creating content and sending it into the universe. And I've got 1 forever biz, which is moving along nicely. So, it all means I don't have to keep doing more and more and more all the time, which I find quite exhausting sometimes.
Good. So mine is gallant because that's my experience of this village, which is not only did these tall, handsome men get up and give Mary and me these sofas so that we could have the experience that they were enjoying, but my landlord did it on the day that I arrived, and he's done it again this morning. There's a strange, old-fashioned, deliciously old-fashioned thing in this village where people, men particularly, are they're living past values that don't often exist in our modern world. And although I said to the man at least 3 times, no, please let me empty my car of my bags and struggle up your front steps and and he got the measure of me straight away. As he said, you go in and I'll hand them through to you. He said, heaven forfend, it should be easy, which was basically him saying, stop struggling against a man trying to help you.
Yes, and heaven forfend is a fantastic expression as
well.
Well,
Exactly, I use that. But gallantry is my word of the week.
Very nice.
Now, whiz through project updates.
Very quickly, I'm still on the mission to get our podcast transcribed, but just the middle bits, not the the bits where we blabber on at the beginning and the end. And we've had 2 opt-ins already for those PDF downloads, which is encouraging. Yeah.
Okay.
And also I've been experimenting with boosting the video version of them as they come onto Facebook for £5 a day, which is the minimum you can do.
Yes, and I would say to you, check out the names of the people who are liking our page because they are what you get when you boost.
Well, I'm not boosting. I'm actually very carefully selecting. So
what I'm saying is just check out the names of the people who are liking our page and draw your own conclusions.
Okay, I'll have a look. Liking page, not the kind of people who would listen to.
Not necessarily.
Okay, I will check that out, and thank you for pointing.
There's just been a strange flurry of strange people.
Okay. Right. Even though I'm only doing it in the UK.
Just check, Nicola. Okay.
I will do. Yeah.
All right. I may be wrong. I may be being ist, but normally you get a nice middle class, middle-aged lady, and there's been a spate of foreign men.
Oh, how strange.
Mm.
Oh, okay. That just goes to show, doesn't it, really?
It does. It's something I know. I mean, frankly, I know often when you're doing things like that because of that's a sign.
Yeah.
Not just on ours, but on anywhere.
Yeah. People's trust, aren't they? They really
well, it's strange, isn't it? It may just indicate we've got a setting wrong. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll check everything. Okay, go for it. Any project updates?
No.
Okay.
But I do have a nice story to tell you and who or what's impressed.
Well, go for it then.
Okay, so yesterday, I mean, for a while I've wanted to get the car cleaned, but I was living so remotely in the country, up rutted tracks and it wasn't worth it. And I thought I could wait till I get to London where it's just roads with no mud on, or I'll do it here. So yesterday I Googled, car wash near me, and I went into Tunbridge Wells, and I found this brilliant business called the Car Spa. And I knew it was a brilliant business because there was a long queue, and I was prepared to wait in it because I didn't have to do anything yesterday except get the car cleaned and a few other sort of personal jobs. And I sat in the queue for a long time, and the queue went across a road, an off-road road, but I made the mistake of putting my car into the wrong space, and then I had to back it up again. And one of the operatives said, put your car here. They were all very kind and attentive. What I was impressed by was the price of an outside only was £8, which I think you'll agree isn't very much money. And despite the fact that they had a long queue, they were not tempted to shortchange the level of service they were giving. So you just waited while they did a proper job. And I gave them a 25% tip in the end, which didn't seem enough, because even though I'd waited a long time, and they had done an excellent job that they hadn't stinted on, those people work in freezing cold, wet, really difficult conditions, while posh, middle-aged, middle-class, more money than sense people sit in the toasty warm inside their car and, play with their phones, so they're not even paying attention to the service that's been provided by these people. The Car Spa in Tunbridge Wells, I thought it was a great little business. Unfortunately, they didn't have a Facebook page, so I couldn't leave a 5-star review explaining why I liked it. But I thought, it's just encouraging when you see, there you go, half a dozen mainly men from Eastern Europe cleaning cars versus the woman on Monday whose disdain for me was such that she couldn't even let me know the key to the lockbox. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like their values, it's values, there you go. And lots of people have talked to me about values this week. The values of these guys yesterday and one girl, they weren't going to stint on the job they were going to do to any car just because there was a queue.
No. And you could tell it's going to be good from the Car Spa. What a great...
And I also think it wasn't just because actually you could, if you were them, feel the pressure from the hoity-toity people in their Audis, who want you to go faster because there's a queue. But somehow we all got the message that if you just sit and wait patiently, it's a long time, but it's going to be worth it.
Yeah. Opportunity to practice mindfulness. Right, I'm going to be very quick. I was going to tell you about something else, but I'll save that for next week. But this week, I was overjoyed to hear that a hardware store from Wales, on a budget of £100, had outperformed every other...
Yes, I saw that. Brilliant. I said to you I don't watch them. I didn't watch that one either, but I saw the news all over Facebook. It's brilliant, isn't it?
A little boy who was allegedly 2 years old, who was the largest toddler I've seen.
Yes.
And the biggest, most grown-up one I've seen for a while as well. Put in Welsh Christmas video hardware store and you'll find it. And
I will link to it.
Okay, it's rather marvellous, and it did make me cry, so there you go. That's us done. I will talk to you next week.
All right, see you soon.
Bye.
It's a brand new day.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.